8 minutes. Rebbe Omer, Eizehu, Eizehu Derech Yishara, Yavrei Adam, which is the proper path that a person should choose for himself. Koshe Tiferes Leiseha v'Tiferes Le'Mizadam. A conduct, a hanhoge, that earns a credit for himself and it earns him esteem in the eyes of his fellow man. It has to be balanced. It has to be a credit for himself. A person wants to lead a certain way, certain type of life, higher spiritual standard or something, so it's going to earn a credit for him, but by the same token, it should earn him esteem in the eyes of fellow men. Rebbe is Judah the Prince, Rebbe Yehudah HaNasi. And if there ever was an idealist, this was Rebbe Yehudah HaNasi. Ideals came above everything else in his life. He saw on the horizon there was a tremendous danger that this great treasure, the Oral Torah, might be lost for all time, because Oral Torah, Torah Sheba'al Peh, had to be committed to memory. And the retentive power, the intellect of a human being was at its highest peak at the stand at Mount Sinai. From that day on, the generations and our hearts and our minds can slowly descended, and we did not have that capacity, that our zikaron, our retentive powers, our memories, and our intellect were not the same. It kept on declining. So laws, halachas, were throughout the generations were being lost. So even though the Oral Torah was supposed to be committed to memory and remain orally, just like the written Torah, the 5 books of Torah scroll is not supposed to be recited orally. It has to be read from the written, from the parchment itself. If someone reads a Torah reader, and if he misses one word, if he reads one word orally, he didn't fulfill his obligation. We didn't hear. He denied himself hearing Torah reading that day. By the same token, the Oral Torah is the other way around. It was given that it has to be committed to memory and not be written. But he saw he saw that the generations are not able to retain and memorize the entire Torah, and there's no danger of it being lost. So he was very wealthy. So he took and he gathered together all the scholars of his generation, and he sustained them with from his own pie, his own wealth. And he had them commit. They handed over to him all of their novelay, their chidushim, all the Torah that they discovered and they expounded, all the Torah, the teachings from their masters and their Rebbes, all from his own pocket. Can there be more idealism than this? Still no, he said, the way a person should conduct himself is he has to earn a credit for himself and also esteem in the face of fellow men. In our generation, on all different levels of society, they see, take me as I am. Especially when they're of marriageable age, so they want to dress this way, they want to dress that way, they want to conduct themselves like this or that. He said, why do I have to have pretense? It's not so. It's not so. You can't. There's not such a thing. You take me as I am. There's a Maimer Chacham. There's a saying written begodim mechadim asadam bevoyoi v'aseichel v'tzeisoi. That a person, when he walks in, the way he's dressed, that's the first impression that he makes. And that's important. After that, then he has to continue impressing the seichel v'tzeisoi with the conversation that he carries on to see what he has internally. He has to have an external appearance, posture, and internally he has to have both. And Moshe Feinstein, the great Moshe Feinstein, there was a question on blended whiskey. The question whether one of the ingredients is not kosher, whether wine that came in the possession of a non-Jew, which makes it yain nesach, and mixed in there with the whiskey, so it would make it not fit, not kosher. So he writes in his tshuva, he writes like this, that he himself, even though at home he doesn't drink it privately, but when he's at a simche, a chasna, a shever brachas, a tnoyim, a vort, he's sitting there and they give him in a glass to drink some blended whiskey. So he says, Cheneged the Mesubin, in the presence of all those sitting there, he drinks it because it shouldn't be mechzik yura. He doesn't want to boast. People should think that he's far above them in his conduct, in his observance of Torah mitzvahs. He has to earn an esteem in the eyes of his fellow man. It was Rabbi Yitzchak, the one who they called the master daf, from the famous daf yomi, where the entire Jewish nation is joined together by they study daily one page, both sides, a leaf of Torah. So he had to travel daily from Yerushalayim to Tel Aviv on the bus. It was quite a trip. So, and of course, not to waste the time, he took with him Torah books, a Gemara he would study. And on the many trips, the daily trips that he made, there were those neighbors sitting near him. So he invited them. Also, they should partake in studying. Why should they waste their time just sitting on a bus for an hour and a half, 2 hours? So he took and he printed up, he photocopied the same page that he's studying, and he would hand it out on the bus to who was sitting next to him. And from 2 became 3, and 3 became 5, and before he realized it, he had half the bus was involved in studying Torah, driving, just a plain bus, driving from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv. They're sitting and studying Torah. From half the bus, it became even almost 3/4. So one day he went over and he approached humbly, very humbly, but I know he approached the bus driver. And he said to him, "Is it possible, would you mind, it might disturb, you're following signs and there's traffic and you're under pressure. Would it disturb you if perhaps I would stand in front of the passengers that our group that's studying, if I would stand in front of them and continue my lecture?" So he said, "My goodness, you sound like a very learned man, very intellectual." He said, "Not only to stand there," he said, "but you come up in front." He said, "I'll give you the microphone, and the whole bus can be treated to listen to your." So this both, it earned him credit for himself, and it earned him esteem in the eyes of his fellow man. Instead of him getting up with arrogance and saying, "Why shouldn't they? This is something that they should have. Why should they waste their time?" It's true, but that's not the approach.